Hi, I'm Nicole Ringgold. Today I'm going to show you how to create your own cabochon using natural rocks. You can find them in the ocean, river, wherever, and you don't need to do anything. You might want to tumble them, but you don't have to. But I'm going to show you how to use a drill press and a diamond core bit to make your own cabochon, and then I'll walk you through the process of setting it into a bezel. So here we go. I hope you enjoy. When you're sifting through rocks, you're going to want to pick out one that's not too tall, because otherwise you're going to spend a whole lot of time grinding off the bottom to make it the perfect size. Here's the product number from Rio Grande. You will need an 11mm diamond core bit. You'll need a bucket of water, and then you can put your diamond core bit in your drill press. I often turn my drill press on and then off to test to make sure that the diamond core bit is placed in there nice and straight. When you do make your cabochon, I highly recommend wearing safety glasses and potentially a mask if there's any dust whatsoever, because the dust is not good to inhale. Throughout this process, stick the stone in the water and then gently but firmly push it against the diamond core bit. You have two goals. One is to shave off the bottom side of the stone so that it sits flat. And the second is so that the bezel wire, the wall, sits just slightly above the stone. So you want to take off as much as you can so that it sits within the bezel. Keep dipping the stone in the water to ensure that the dust is minimal. Circle the stone so that you're grinding off the bottom from different directions. You can move in circular motions, back and forth, up and down, but that way there are no little bumps that interrupt how flat it sits within the bezel. When you think you're done, place your stone on a flat surface and tap it. And if there's any rock, you'll have to keep going. But if there's no rock, you're good to go. The next test is to be sure that your bezel wire sits above your stone in every direction, no matter which way you turn it. Next, you can take your stone and wrap it with the bezel wire. Make sure that it's nice and snug. Wrap the bezel wire around the stone until it overlaps. Hold the bezel in place and then slip the stone out. Then you'll take a pair of flush cutters and snip through both layers of bezel wire. Make sure that your stone fits nice and snug inside your bezel. When you're ready to solder, put it flat on your soldering platform. Make sure that the seam is flush, and then flux. Then use hard solder. I take one piece of hard solder and put it next to the bezel on my platform. To pick solder, I heat the solder, not the pick. Make sure that your pick is not hot, and make sure that your pick is clean to pick up your solder. Heat evenly on both sides of the seam, and then when your bezel is warm enough, drop your solder down into the seam. I then like to flip my bezel upward so that I can heat the inside of the bezel and ensure that the solder has come through both sides of the seam. In this next part, I'm going to talk about the colors of the silver as you're soldering. When silver comes out of the box, or if it's just been sitting around, I consider it gray. It's dirty, it's not porous. So you'll want to anneal it. Use a soft flame and heat the silver until after you pull away, it's black. After you have annealed and put it in the pickle, it's white, clean, porous. You'll want to flux it, and then you'll take your bezel wire and flux that and put it on the back plate. Place several pieces of medium solder on the inside of the bezel. Heat from below. The bottom of the sheet should also be fluxed. Wait for the flux to foam, and then when the silver starts to turn a yellow color, I'm going to lift it up so that you can see that slight yellow hue. That means solder flow point. And there you see the solder flowing. I use a 3/0 blade since my back plate is 22 gauge, and I'm sawing all the way around the bezel. Use an abrasive sandpaper to sand down the sides of the bezel, and then move over to a finer grit sandpaper. I decided to make a ring shank using sheet, but you can certainly use half round wire, and I also decided to do a split shank ring. From here, I put the bezel face down on the soldering platform, put the shank in place, and then flux. Place easy solder, one piece of easy solder, on the inside of the ring shank, one on either side. Then you'll turn on your torch and heat the entire mass until your silver starts to turn that slight yellow hue, which means solder flow point. And then you're going to go directly into the corner on the opposite side of the ring shank to draw the solder through, and then move to the other side to draw the solder through on the second side of the ring shank. In this next shot, you'll see that I have pickled my ring, put it in liver of sulfur, then polished that off, and so then the next step is going to be to set the stone. I like to place my ring in a vise, and you can push the stone in, and if it doesn't go in nicely, then you can use a rawhide mallet or a rubber mallet to gently tap it in. The tools that I use to set stones are a rocker or a pusher, and then a burnisher, a straight edge burnisher, and that's all I use. 80% of the work I do is with the rocker. So I like to take the rocker and push from the bottom moving upward, and I always parallel the bezel. I begin with the sharper corners and then move to the longer edges and roll, 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 and then move over to the burnisher, which I use kind of like a potato peeler, where I'm burnishing just that top edge of the bezel. If I find there are any air pockets, I go back to the roller and then reburnish. And then that's it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave a comment and I'll do my best to respond. Thank you.